Yeah, perfect. Oh, I was checking the mic, all right. Hey, thanks guys. Good afternoon. My name is Rahul. He's given the full introduction that I was supposed to give over the last 5 minutes. So you've eaten up my 5 minutes, man. But yeah, nonetheless, I work with the international team. I've been working with web solutions for a while. I've been tinkering with everything new on web for a while, and one of these things that I wanted to build and started on my own was these conversational UIs or chatbots. So yeah, I think we are done on this. So at the outset, I really want to take this time and build the background on what conversational UIs are. So most of you already know what conversational UIs are, I believe, have started building your own bots in some fashion, built some sort of a solution out of it, but I really want to just take this time and build the background on what it is. So if historically, or if you look at the background, we all started communicating or interacting with computers or systems through command lines or terminals. This was pretty simple because you needed to remember what these commands or syntaxes were, but it was actually just you telling the computer what to do, and there were no surprises. Whatever command you would put in, that's exactly how the computer is going to respond to you. Then came the next phase of graphical interfaces, which actually changed the way you interacted with the computers. There were no command lines, so the users wouldn't really need to remember exactly what commands to put in, what syntaxes to remember, and you were just interacting with these interfaces. We are in middle of the third phase right now, and I believe the first speaker, Nikunj, he's going to have a different point of view on this. But we are in middle of an era right now where we are interacting with computers or systems through natural languages, and this is pretty interesting because we are into a stage now where instead of we learning how to interact with computers, it's actually the other way around, where computers are now learning how to interact with humans. So I want to take at the outset, I want to make it clear that conversational UIs does not necessarily mean chatbots. Chatbots are just one interface that is part of the whole conversational UI or conversational interfaces. You can think of conversational interfaces which not necessarily mean or rely on text-based services, say for example, Echo or Siri. These are all part of conversational interfaces, but they are not part of the same, or they all represent conversational interfaces in their own ways, but not necessarily through text-based systems. I would also like to, towards the start itself, point out that we are going to talk a lot about conversational UIs, chatbots, but in no ways we are going to, or am I going to try and say that which is better, the conventional solutions that we already have, the mobile apps, the web applications, or the conversational UIs. So this is just a comparative view. This is how conversational UIs are, what sort of features they have, and what sort of solutions or use cases do they try to solve. So this is towards the last of the background. So if you take a look at conversational UIs from a machine learning paradigm, there are basically two types of modeling solutions that you will come across. The first one is the retrieval-based model, which actually works through the same decision tree model. Decision tree model means what it does is it basically creates a big library of responses. So this library of responses is already created by you, by human intervention or something. So you're basically training the model in some ways. Now, depending upon the request or the text request that you send in, it identifies what is the best possible response that I can send from. So you can think of it like really cool on the front end, or really cool on the interface, or really smart on the interface, but sort of dumb on the background. The other option or the other methodology that you have is a generative model. And this is quite smart, and this is actually way cooler than the other one, where it learns how to or what response to send back. So depending upon what request you're sending, it's actually generating this response on the fly. So like everything else, both of them have their own pros and cons. So the first one, the retrieval-based model, is interesting because you have spent the time creating this whole library of responses to be sent, but because it's again a library of responses or a library of anything, depending upon what sort of an application you have, what sort of solution you are making, that library can end up becoming huge for you to maintain. The other one, the generative model, is way cooler, way smarter, but again, it takes a lot of data for you to train. It's ultimately a data play. And for you to train something on your own, so trust me, I have tried my hand on both of them. So with generative models, I had to take help of a lot of my data science guys. They knew what they were talking about. I knew shit. So yeah, then, oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So I wanted to cover what conversational UIs are and where are we coming from and what sort of solutions that are there, or what sort of modeling solutions that are there. So why are they making such a big fuss right now? Why is everybody talking about conversational UIs right now? I believe all of you have seen the Google I/O where Google Assistant from Sundar Pichai's presentation had made an actual call to somebody and took care of all the scenarios that were falling in, right? Yeah. That was pretty cool. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm nowhere there, right? But yeah, so what I'm going to talk about is specifically how to tackle these messaging services or conversational UIs that tackle these text-based messaging applications. So if you take a look at how these messaging services have come up, so it just took them 4 years to surpass the active usage or user base that these conventional social media applications had. What that meant, and the reason of that is that users are actually pretty comfortable when they're using something which is just text-based. You do not have to worry about how to use the application and everything. It's just having a conversation between two people. So a user survey was done, and a lot of these people felt, and basically 3 main reasons were pointed out as to why people are more comfortable using any type of messaging service. I'm not calling it conversational UI right now, but any type of messaging service over conventional applications. So the first one was that messaging apps felt more personal than any other application. And there is a reason for that. So if you take it from, at a historical basis, text is the most powerful mode of communication that we have as human beings. And it made a lot of sense because brands actually want to create that deep relationship with their users. And they spend a lot of time and effort creating the perfect user experience that their brands should follow and everything else. But for a user, it's actually depending upon how they are perceiving that particular application or that particular user journey. We are going to talk about how users are finding it interesting when it comes to, interesting is the right word, how they're finding it interesting when they actually have to go and look at a new app or a new service when they want to go and take a new app. So one of the things that I sort of wanted to bring forward to this audience was, when we are talking about conversational UIs, we are not just talking about sending a request or asking a question and having the response back. So basically, you are giving an interface that's just that one interface that does a lot of stuff. What you are also trying to do is tweak your responses depending upon who's asking that question. So you've got one interface that will respond to different users or different user personas differently. As long as your bot is learning, as long as your bot brain that is powering your system, as long as that is learning, creating the user persona, creating what the preferences of the users are, you are going to give a different experience to the users whenever they come in. So I'll give you an example. So take, for example, a CEO, when he comes to your bot and tries to ask a question like, how is my company doing? So you do not need to send him a really, really detailed information back. You can send him an Uber-level information which does a comparative study of, okay, Q3 or Q2 of this year, we are 5% better than what we were last year. But the same question when a category manager or a divisional manager or some sort of a department head asks that same question, you are going to send him a much more detailed level information. How is this department doing? What sort of sales are we seeing from this demography? How is this category behaving? Something like that. So depending upon who's asking that question, you can tweak your responses back. The other aspect that people found was interesting was that these conversational UIs, these bots, felt more appropriate for many interactions. So I think I was trying to talk about this a while back, where these so brands have this innate requirement of creating some sort of a connection between their users. But it's that much more difficult to find that space in a user's mobile nowadays. I know mobile sizes have increased, not just on the size, but also on the the capacity of these of the phones. But it's becoming increasingly difficult for companies or for people to actually have their apps downloaded on their phones. If you take a look at this, you'll understand a lot of the users who took this survey didn't really download a new app for months. What that meant is the idea of not needing to download a new app for a new service or new offering that your product has was amazing. It was really powerful because you have one interface which where the updates are not on the front end. Your front end is quite simple, right? It's just a chat conversation. But these interfaces, they are making you interact with different systems, and you do not need to go and download different applications or different apps every time you want to add a new service. One of the aspects that I think is important is the whole importance of machine learning and artificial intelligence. We are talking about bots here, conversational UI. So we are already in that domain of machine learning and artificial intelligence, where the whole point of making all of these applications or these apps is to make sure that your users do not have to spend a lot of time doing whatever they were doing right now. You are doing a lot of this stuff automatically. So I mean, one of the things, think about it this way. Why do you want your users to go through your whole catalog of items or services that you're trying to sell? Make them go through the filters and set their preferences and all of that. These are all there. These are all solutions that you already have. Sometimes the users just want to sit back, relax, and I just want show me the top 4 or 5 things that I need to do, and I'm going to pick one of them that I want to do. I'm lazy. I mean, humans are innately lazy to do all of these. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the user base, the age group that we are targeting. Everybody is targeting different age groups, and everybody is trying to target everybody that they can. But if you take a look at teenagers, if you have teenagers at your home or around you, you'll understand the way they interact with information or the way they share information is really different. They're always on their phone, they're always texting, hardly checking their emails, hardly on social media sites that we are on. I'm old. But so it's really important for us to start thinking about how do we make sure that they are hooked on to the services that we are bringing them. Because these are the habits that they are going to take with them when they go to colleges, when they go to their professional careers. It makes sense to actually capture that user base now, if we can, and making sure that your services are available as conversational UIs or some sort of messaging service integrated with these messaging bots. These are solutions that you can try to targeting that audience now. The third was these services were available, these UIs were available wherever the user wanted. Let me tell you what I mean. So conversational UIs are all about delivering convenience. I was talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence and how we should be trying to do stuff that the otherwise users will have to spend a lot of time and attention to do that. So if I am able to do a lot of stuff that can be done automatically, automate as much as possible, and learn from what the user's preferences are or what sort of stuff they are doing, it makes it that much more easier to automate all of that. The other aspect is, because you're talking about conversational UIs, you're automatically talking about integration with different services. So I'll give you an example of what, say, Domino's did. So Domino's created this chatbot, which was integrated with Twitter. And because you were using this chatbot knowingly, unknowingly, you started creating your own persona or your preferences inbuilt. So keeping all my parameters same, if I'm tweeting about a pizza, if I want to order a pizza, I just tweet about it. And it knew where I stay, it knew what sort of pizza I eat, and my pizza would just get delivered. I'll have to pay for it, but it will get delivered. Right? The next thing I wanted to talk about is integration of different services. So it's extremely important that when you think about some sort of a chatbot or a conversational UI, you start thinking about how do you integrate different services together, and they have to integrate seamlessly. So if you have ever tried integrating an Uber or playing or ordering movie or anything over a voice-based system, so whenever you are ordering an Uber, Uber needs your location, Uber needs your account to be integrated. But when you're trying to book an Uber, you're not telling, okay, book me an Uber at Taj Vivanta at Begumpet in Hyderabad. No. Uber, I mean, this Alexa is generally a stationary object, right? It's available here, it knew what your location is. And that information passage between Echo and your Uber was seamless. So these sort of seamless, and it's easy to miss these things, but it's very important that we start thinking about how to integrate different services seamlessly. So one aspect of conversational UI is that is pretty easy for us to miss, but it's really important, and why they are becoming so such a big deal with organizations right now is it basically seamlessly integrates different departments in an organization. Say, for example, somebody wants to buy something. They have to contact your sales department. They have to return it. They have to contact your customer services. If they have to, say, take a refund, they have to get in touch with your accounting. And there can be n number of departments or n number of organizations inside your organization. But with a conversational UI, with a simple chatbot, what you're trying to do is integrate all of these services, all of these organizations, all of these departments under one roof. So from a user's perspective, it does not really know who he's interacting with or whether he's interacting with a human at all or not. So instead of thinking about interacting with somebody, say a John Doe sitting at accounting, you are actually interacting with, say, a bot that is there who understands what your questions are and gets the right kind of information back to him. And if there is a human intervention needed at some point, he's going to go and get that. So what it also does is from an organization's perspective, it actually reduces the cost of the call center associates that you need or the customer service associates that you need. So that kind of cost saving can be put into something much more interesting or fulfilling that the organization can think of. So these were the three main reasons that I could think of that these conversational UIs are making such a big deal right now. Now, if you have already bought into this idea that conversational UIs are cool and you would want to dip your toes into one of them or build few of these solutions, so what would it actually take to build a solution or build your first bot? So let me start with this. So building a bot is easy. You can actually build any bot over a weekend, some bot over a weekend, but a bot that's actually intelligent, that actually does something in simple and solves a particular problem, that's difficult. So let me try and give you a simple or the generic architecture that any of these bots are going to use, right? In the middle, you're going to have this bot brain. It can be a retrieval-based model. It can be a generative model. It can be an amalgamation of both of them at some levels. Eventually, you are going to start integrating it with your product's data store. So you already have a service, you already have a product, and you have been storing your data someplace, and eventually you want all these bots, these conversational UIs to start integrating with your actual data store, and so you are now either pushing data or pulling data or doing both of them. Like I talked about integrating services, so you are going to eventually start integrating different services with your solution that you're trying to build here, right? Towards the start, you are going to need some sort of human intervention, which means you are going to start training it to behave in a certain way, be a good boy and behave in this when somebody's asking you something, right? Do that. Train your bot as much as possible. Give it as much of data as possible. Train it for different varieties of situations that it can fall under. Because, and we are going to talk about this, but error handling is possibly the biggest thing that you can do with your bot, because it's not what your bot can't do. Is basically how your bot handles situations is what makes a bot good or bad. So finally, you are going to do this integration of the interface. So depending upon, so you can have different sort of interfaces for your bots. Okay? You can have a messaging service integration with a Facebook Messenger. You can have a Slack bot. You can have voice-based services over Alexa or something like that. But The main thing is your users' expectations change depending upon what sort of an interface you have. So if you have a Slack bot, your user expectation from a Slack bot are very different compared to a voice-based service like an Amazon Echo or a Siri. For now, if you really want to start off your bot really quickly and you want to build something over the weekend, or not over the weekend, but in a few days span, use the retrieval-based model for now. It's easy. You just have to create your this whole library of responses that we are talking about. You just have to train it with different sorts of requests that you can think of, and it's pretty easy to start off. I'm going to talk about Wit.ai. There are tons of these platforms that you can use. There are a lot of these platforms and there are a lot of these frameworks. But so Wit falls under one of these frameworks. But what it does is depending upon the request or the text that you sent, it identifies your intent, and it identifies the different entities in your request. So what are we asking for? And it gives out with a particular confidence score on each of them. What you do from it is something that you have to code up. You basically code up the different types of handling that you want to do upon the response that Wit is sending you. I just want to take this example, but there are lots of these solutions that are there. You can use the Microsoft bot framework. It's actually pretty good. I did not want to use that example here, but Wit is again one of these solutions that you can just start off with. It's actually by Facebook. So if you're okay making Facebook get your data and learning from it, then you should be okay with Wit.ai. Okay. One of the major things that you should be thinking about when you're building a bot is you narrow down the problem as much as possible. Nobody's coming to your bot thinking about having a conversation of the political situation that our country is going through. That's not what they're coming for. They're coming there to solve certain problems that they're either their business is going through or they need certain information, very, very specific information. So narrow down the problem that you are trying to solve and narrow down the answers as well. Give as much crisp answers as possible. I talked about error handling, I think, but spend a decent amount of time, a lot of time on error handling. The good thing about chatbots is your UI is your log file. So every interaction that you're making, every request that is getting sent to the bot, every response that is being generated, every response that is sent to the user, how are these getting handled, what sort of errors that are coming, all of this is getting logged. And that's actually a good thing, because if you have a team of products, if you have a product team, they have this option of going through these logs at real time. They are learning from this, and if they want to iterate over these solutions, the lead time to the next release can be drastically reduced. It can be some weeks, days, or at some point some hours as well. If there are some unforeseen situations that your bot is, or some requests that your bot is going through, then you can actually just make that change as quick as in some hours. I wanted to take, I think I'm really quick, but we are coming towards the end of it, right? So I wanted to take this example and go through this use case. So this is one of these chatbots that was integrated with Facebook Messengers. It's from an e-com or a retail site called Macy's. The first thing, I would basically try to go through all the points that we talked about through this example. So the first thing that it does is it gives a very, very good user onboarding experience. When I say user onboarding, so it just talks about what it can do and what it can't. So it comes and says, okay, I'm going to help you with your shopping experience. I can help you buy this from there and all of that. It tells you that, okay, you can look for colors, you can look for all of that, sizes and all of that. So it tries to give you or narrows down the domain as much as possible. Next thing it does really well is it simplifies the data entry. So remember, we were talking about integration of different services seamlessly. So given that it knows your location, it suggests these stores that you can go and buy from or pick up from seamlessly. You're not asking for, okay, where am I going to go and pick up from? Unless you ask and say, okay, I want to pick it up from a store. It actually goes and tells you, okay, which store to go and pick it up from. So these integrations of different services are really, really seamless. And think about these when you're actually building your bot. The the next point was these natural language filtering. So we are already talking about natural language, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all of that. I'm not a data science guy, so I can't dig deep into it. But the importance of natural language in a chatbot is immense. You are building your chatbot to make sure that people can have a conversation. Conversations are basically natural language driven. So as long as you are letting them make their preferences or filter out data using natural languages, you are actually one step ahead. So you can do stuff like what colors do you have, or what size do you have of this T-shirt, something like that. Use natural language as much as possible. Remembering context. So this is the most important thing that bots go through, right? When I talk about context, I mean everything. The bot has to remember who you are. Bot has to remember what your persona is. Bot has to remember what your preferences are. The bot has to remember what you bought last week when you come back to this bot again and say, okay, I bought a T-shirt and I want to return it because it's too tight. It needs to remember which order am I talking about. It needs a confirmation from you, but it needs to remember what I'm talking about. So remembering context for a bot is extremely important. This is a cycle that we follow a lot, which is the which basically we call it the build, measure, and learn cycle. So we try to ideate about what sort of solution that we want to build, and this works very well for a bot because the lead time or the cycle time in this is extremely low. So we try to ideate as to what do we want to build the first version as quickly as possible. Then we basically ship it off to a few of our users, give it off to them, take their feedback, sort of an A/B situation, and then put in as much of data as possible, as much diverse data as possible from all the different age groups and demography of users that we can get our hands on, and then basically learn from how our application is being used. Log as much as possible, understand how is this getting used. So the good thing about chatbots is that, like I said, the UI is your log file, so you can understand what sort of requests are being sent and responses are being generated. And then just build your second version. So the lead time in this has to be small. I mean, I believe most of the organizations, most of the startups, everybody is following some sort of a cycle like this, and it works fine if you're on a agile methodology. It works well. So if you think that conversational UIs are a way for your organization or for you to go forward, my only suggestion would be go take a problem, build a solution, build your first version, ship it off to people, and then learn from it and just repeat. There's no other shortcut to building a bot, because if you talk about which model to use, which platform to use, you can use any of them. That's my suggestion. Start using something, then you'll figure out which one is better or the other. So yep, this is me. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot.